I think it is now on presentation mode. I'm right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Sorry,
perfect.
announcement. We are recording this. Webinar, but only the presentations will be shared later on the website of this webinar, right? So it's not the discussions, it's just the 4 presentations that will be shared later on. Thank you very much. So the meeting recording has started. Please, Marie-Joao.
Thank you, Albert. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar, and I would like to thank you for attending our webinar and for the great interest that we received. As Albert said, my name is Maria João Gregório, and I'm here as the Work Package 6 leader of the Best-ReMaP joint action, and I am here on behalf of this excellent team. So this work package is jointly coordinated by Portugal and Ireland, and what you can see in this slide is the coordination team of this work package, and I am very glad to have in our team some of the main experts on food marketing, in particular the Mimi Tatla Golden and also Magdalena Mook, that later on will also have a presentation in our webinar. This work package of Best-ReMaP joint action aims to promote the implementation of best practices in reducing marketing of unhealthy food to children in the EU countries. And in particular, these are our main goals. The first one is to identify, develop, and share best policy practices to reduce exposure of children to the marketing of unhealthy foods. The second one is to develop harmonized protocols and tools to monitor the extent and nature of marketing exposure of children. And the last main goal is to support EU member states with the implementation of the new EU rules on audiovisual media services. And one of the main added values of this joint action is the opportunity to work together and together with different EU member states and also together with other international organizations like the World Health Organization, the GRC from the European Commission, the OECD, and also the Euro Health Net. So actually, in terms of the European countries in this joint action, we were able to bring together 17 EU countries that are now working together to try to have and to implement best practices on this topic regarding the need to reduce food marketing to children. And during this presentation, I will briefly present some data that shows the impact on diet of the exposure of children to unhealthy food marketing. And also I will try to provide some data that explain and shows why we need to take action in order to have a Europe free of harmful food marketing to children. And actually, unhealthy food marketing is one of the main elements of the obesogenic environment in which our children are living today. And it is increasingly recognized that obesogenic environments are associated with the increasing trend in childhood obesity that we are observing during the last decades and that violate multiple child rights. Food marketing is everywhere, and European children are exposed to a large number of advertisements and promotion of unhealthy foods that came from different sources and channels. And children are exposed to unhealthy food marketing through traditional media channels like TV and radio. Children are also exposed with a large number of unhealthy food ads online and on social media. Children are also exposed to unhealthy food marketing during their journey to schools every day. Sports sponsorship is also one form of marketing from which children are exposed. And the concern regarding children exposure to unhealthy food marketing is becoming even more worried because during the last few years, new food marketing strategies have emerged and more powerful, in particular with the use of the digital marketing. And we know that an advertising message often takes between 4 and 7 exposures to potentially change a behavior, but digital media can amplify this effect by a factor of 4. This is data from the WHO. So these data show us that the digital marketing and the digital environment significantly increase the children exposure to food marketing. Another issue to highlight is the fact that the marketing strategies are using more and more strategies that use entertainment as an appeal and actively engage children. And one example is the advert games that the majority of food brands are providing in their websites. And with these strategies, marketeers aim to engage children in emotional and entertaining experiences. So this is not only a problem related with the exposure, but also with the power of the marketing. And there is also clear evidence that the majority of food ads promote unhealthy foods, and this data is from one study that was published in Obesity Reviews, and it was conducted in 22 countries, and it is possible to observe that food beverages not permitted to be promoted according to the WHO nutrient profile model were 4 times more advertised. So this is another issue of concern. And there is also evidence that suggests that children from low-income groups are more exposed to unhealthy food advertising, which is also of big concern if we consider the huge social inequalities in diet and obesity. And considering the impact of food marketing, we have some systematic reviews that have been shown that food marketing has an impact on eating and related behaviors. And the evidence on this association between the food marketing and the obesity meets the criteria for a causal relationship between the two variables. And the evidence that we have now described a cascade of effects in which children exposure to unhealthy food marketing influence the children's brand awareness and preferences, creates social norms around foods and eating, and consequently influence the food purchases and consumption. The scientific evidence has also shown that exposure to unhealthy food advertising, at least under experimental conditions, results in significant increase in food consumption, in particular of energy-dense and low-nutrient foods. And indeed, some studies found that food advertising increased dietary intake in children. These are studies under experimental conditions when compared with exposure to non-food advertising. And a meta-analysis estimate that on average for children, the additional calorie consumption caused by 4.4 minutes of food advertising is 60 kilocalories. The same meta-analysis estimate that this increase in energy intake is greatest among children living with obesity. In this study, we found that children living with overweight consume 57% more calories than healthy weight children after being exposed to unhealthy food advertising. So this suggests that children that are living with overweight and obesity are more responsive to food promotion, and that this promotion stimulate the food intake. So this is why we need to take policy action and an effective action, because the actions that we are implementing in the past are not being able to reduce the exposure of children to unhealthy food marketing, and we really need to ensure that children live in an environment free from unhealthy food marketing. But in my presentation, I'm not going to talk about the solutions because my colleagues Anna, Magdalena, and Margarida will explore what we can do better to protect our children from harmful food marketing, and they will present the work that we are developing under the scope of the work package 6 of the Best-ReMaP joint action. Thank you so much, and back to you, Albert.
Thanks a lot, Maria-Jo. It was really very interesting, engaging presentation. There were so many details on your slides. I thought even on one of them, we could have an entire discussion, entire webinar, but for the introduction, it was really perfect. So now we move on to the first presentation by Ana Contreras Navarro. Welcome, Ana. Thanks for joining this webinar. Ana is a postdoctoral researcher in the School of Public Health in the University College Cork in Ireland. She has been working for Best-ReMaP joint action in work package 6, and she performs research on developing technical guidance for adopting and implementing best practices in statutory food marketing codes. So very interesting topics. And the title of the presentation is Government Control of Harmful Food and Drink Marketing to Children and the Young, the Why and the How. So thanks, Anna, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Albert, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I will share my screen with you. Please let me know if you're able to see it.
Yes, this is perfect. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
So I won't focus too much on the why, because our work package leader, Maria Joao, already gave a very good explanation on why it is important to control the food marketing of unhealthy foods to children. But I will speak about the why. And if we look at our recent history, almost 13 years ago, in May of 2010, the World Health Assembly and its 194 member states unanimously endorsed a set of recommendations on the marketing of foods and non-alcoholic beverages to children. And this is because by then it was already recognized that the prevalence of childhood obesity has had risen compared to other decades. And this is to reduce the impact of marketing of specific foods. So it doesn't apply to all of the foods that are available in the market. It applies to those that are high in saturated fats, trans fatty acids, free sugars, or salt, because these components are shown to have detrimental effects in health. And according to our review of the food policy actions that are in place, we looked at the World Cancer Research Fund policy database called Nourishing. We look at the evidence-based documents that were produced by the Policy Evaluation Network. And we also looked at data at the database developed by the European Commission's Joint Research Center to identify all of the policy actions that are in place in relation to food advertising to children. And across Europe, there are 28 countries that have one of these policies or regulations, which can be self-industry regulated or it can be mandatory. And we identified that many of these do not implement the best practices that are set in international and European frameworks. So, for example, some of these best practices are to protect children up to 18 years old, which integrates the definition of the United Conventions on the rights of the child, that every human being up to 18 years old is a child. It does not define child marketing, which this definition should address the advertising, taking into the context the presentation of the advertisement. They do not use nutrient profiling model. Our Margarida, our colleague, will talk more about this. They do not cover all settings or all the marketing techniques, or do not address cross-border marketing. So in that aspect, we have a lot to learn from the tobacco control policies that were developed, because those address cross-border marketing. And they do not incorporate clear implementation, evaluation, or enforcement strategies. So these are the problems that we have identified on current policy actions implemented. And by policy actions, I just want to highlight that we do not, we're not just looking at statutory or government-led regulations. These include self-industry voluntary regulations. And why is this needed? I just want to mention that the WHO identified or estimated that already in Europe, there's 12% of children 5 to 9 years old who are living with obesity. And these can cause several complications in health. And as well, it constitutes a great burden in terms of costs for the health sector. And some studies have have already identified that a diet that is high in fat or sugar is associated with an increased body mass, waist circumference, and fat mass gain after only 2 years of follow-up. So if you think on 2, 4, 6 years, these accumulated effect of this type of unhealthy diet can lead to obesity and all those metabolic consequences. And a different diet that is high in whole grains, vegetables, and fruits is protective against weight gain. So this is why we're focusing on those type of foods. And fortunately, there is a lot of work that has been done in this area. but by international organizations such as the WHO, UNICEF, and the Joint Research Center at the European level. And these guidelines include information on which aspects should be included in food marketing codes to effectively protect children from harmful food marketing. And in particular, the UNICEF policy guide includes or integrates a child rights-based approach into these food marketing codes. So what are the lessons that we can learn from countries who have implemented effective food marketing codes? We have the example of Chile food labeling and food marketing code, which is, it was implemented in 2016, and it is comprehensive in scope. It prohibits all advertising of unhealthy foods and beverages directed at children who are 14 years old or under in any medium. And it covers child-directed techniques and incentives. And it has been shown that in broadcast television advertising, the child advertising fell by 35% for preschoolers and 52% for adolescents since its implementation. So this is a good example of what is effective in food marketing controls. We have the case of Turkey, which is one of the countries that protects all children up to 18 years old, and it uses nutrient criteria to identify those foods that should not be marketed to children based on a model that is similar to the one recommended by the European Audiovisual Media Services Directive. And it includes a clear enforcement strategy as well. And importantly, in the case of Turkey, it has already conducted an evaluation of the exposure to digital food advertising in 2017. So it is important to have a baseline measurement of the exposure to food advertising so that you can compare with these measurements in the future and to find if the food marketing code is effective to protect children. We also have, and this is the last one, the effect from the marketing code established in Quebec in the 1970s, 1980s. It became effective in 1980. And this is a marketing code that does not only apply to food or beverages, it applies to all products that should not be marketed to children. And it has a very specific enforcement strategy, and it has been shown that it is effective at reducing the purchases of fast food. So in summary, because I'm conscious of the time, our review of published evidence so far indicates that the most effective controls on the marketing of these unhealthy foods are government-led initiatives that incorporate best practices from international bodies and the best interest of the child. In addition, these marketing codes are periodically supplemented by guidance documents, as well as updated regulations. Thank you. We look forward to your questions by the end of these presentations.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Anna. It was really great presentation, very exciting. So yes, if you have some questions, please let us know. You can, well, you can prepare for the end or the Q&A session, or you can even type during the presentation your questions, and then the presenters, well, the next ones like Magdalena or Margarita can take one or two questions after their presentations, or you can save your questions, as I mentioned, for a Q&A session at the end. So thanks, Anna. Thanks again for this great presentation. Now, next presentation is by Magdalena Muck. She's a postdoctoral research associate at the Open University. She has been working on the topic of food marketing since 2018. And within the Best-ReMaP, she's responsible for the development and piloting of the EU WHO marketing monitoring protocol, and other super interesting topic. So Magdalena, please, the floor is yours. We cannot hear you. Now I don't think we can hear you. We still cannot hear you. If anybody else hears Magdalena, this is perfect, not me.
Magda, we cannot hear you.
No, we cannot hear you. Yes, you're muted. You are unmuted now. Now it's still the same. So there is some technical thing. What if I'm just thinking.
Hear me now?
Yes, it's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's probably not very clear because I have to use the laptop microphone, but at least you can hear me, so it's okay.
This is perfect. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I have to go back now. Okay, so let me start by explaining, maybe some of you might not know what the Snakes and Ladders is. So in this household, we are big fans of board games. And there's this very simple board game called Snakes and Ladders. And the goal of this game is to move up, to throw your dice and then move up the board game to reach your goal. And this goal for us, well, for our team and for the public health community, is to have a very successful regulation that would protect children from unhealthy food marketing. And for our team in particular, in terms of monitoring, it is to have a good comprehensive monitoring protocol that could be used across Europe. And so the ladders are the facilitators of the game. So when you step on the ladder field, it moves you really up high and it gets you closer to your goal. And if you're getting on a snake, you will slide all the way down. So you don't want to get on the snake. So in this presentation, I will be talking about what are the snakes and ladders that we've identified through this work in creation of a good monitoring tool, but also in implementing these tools. So as I said, we are creating a tool, a monitoring protocol that can be used across Europe to monitor unhealthy food marketing. It is important because it is the only way to know what kind of food marketing reaches children, how much of it reaches children, and it is the only way to monitor if any regulation is working. So if there will be any form of regulation of unhealthy food marketing without monitoring, we will not know if it's being successful and if it's improving the situation. So having a good monitoring as an element of a regulatory system is crucial. So our role, our work in this work package in our team focusing on the monitoring started by reviewing the existing protocols. So we checked what tools are available at this moment that countries were using, that were piloted and tested across the world. We've gathered this knowledge in our review that you can find on the Best-ReMaP site in the parts of the results of the work package 6. It's a summary of all existing protocols to monitor unhealthy food to children globally. We presented this document to our partners, partnering countries, and we asked them, this is what is currently available, which elements of the protocols you think are useful and should and could be adopted in the European wide protocol, and what do you think they are still missing, what we could improve, what we could add to our protocol so it will be successful and helpful for you in your country. So we've organized a knowledge and information sharing workshop, and there we discussed with the countries what they think about the protocols and our review, and also we asked them what is their experience in monitoring. So do they have any experience in monitoring and healthy food marketing, and what this experience was? What were the challenges and facilitators? So what were their snakes and ladders of monitoring? And we've gathered this. This is also included in the document I've mentioned. And we were also lucky, as Maria João mentioned, the big strength of this joint action is gathering all the countries together, getting all the experiences from all these countries, but also getting experts from the field that we can consult during the expert group meetings. We can consult with each other. We can consult with people that already been through some of that monitoring path. And we also consulted young people who are experts in their own lives, and they are in the center of the topic. So we've consulted young people from the Co-Create project, and based on all of this knowledge, we are building the protocol that can be used by all the European countries to monitor their unhealthy food marketing. So we've drafted the first version of this protocol, and we are currently piloting it with our partners, and it is going really well, I think. So the main facilitators, the main ladders that were identified by the partners and by the experts to what a really good monitoring protocol should be were gathered, and they are also presented in the document. So, but one of the important elements that's and the information that I should give you for the rest of the presentation is that they suggested that we will be using the protocols that already were tested in some of the countries. So it was suggested that we joined our powers with the WHO protocols, which are already well structured and they are already piloted across many countries, and that we built on that to create the joint EU-WHO protocol, which we did. So currently, this is the structure of our protocols. So the TV and the internet protocols are the WHO protocols, and we are implementing them in the countries. We are gathering the learning from the countries, and we will be providing this feedback to update these protocols after the joint action. And within the some of the elements were created within the Best-ReMaP from scratch. So we've added the outdoor protocol, which was not existing in the WHO protocols. We've designed the media and brand survey that allows countries to know what are the brands or products of unhealthy food that are popular among children and young people, that can check what kind of media children are using and what is how they are using it. That includes internet and TV, what influencers are popular in each country. So it can be used as the first step of some of the internet protocols, or it can be used as a standalone to evaluate the marketing landscape in each country, and it's very popular tool among our partners. On top of that, we've identified that the countries could use some guidance on how to engage children in the monitoring in form of participants, but also in form of the advisory boards. And one of the first questions almost from all of them would be, how much money do we need? How much time do we need? How many people do we need? So we are providing a guidance to explain that usually it's the other way around. So how to plan what kind of activities you can do based on your resources. So first check what are your resources, and then based on your resources, how can you move on and how can you plan the activities around that? Because this is the reality. Very often what we can do is limited to what we have, and very few will have the luxury of getting enough money and people to do what they want. This is the result of our piloting program, which is we are really, really happy with the outcome. Because many countries were interested and they actually decided to pilot our elements. They're providing great feedback and knowledge to us. They are very collaborative. So we have altogether 22 projects across 14 countries. Those that are in white are those that started piloting some of the protocols before the joint action. So we got on during the projects, and we are gathering the learnings or supporting them in the continuation of the projects. And all of those that are in green are those that implemented some kind of protocol directly from the Best-ReMaP. So all these projects are a direct result of the Best-ReMaP and our work. We are really, really happy and proud of our partners that they stepped in so well, and the collaboration is going so well. So in the end of this joint action in September, we will have the framework that will have monitoring protocol, but the protocol is not monitoring anything by itself, and it needs to be implemented. And This work allowed us not only to explore what are the important elements of a good monitoring tools, but also what are the facilitators, what are the snakes and ladders of the implementation. So what the countries would need to be supported in the work. So this actually gets implemented. It is EU-wide, it is comprehensive, and it has all these elements that were mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. So one of the first snakes is the lack of confidence and experience. So even if sometimes we don't even need to give them a lot of support to these countries, but I think they really benefited from someone telling them you're doing right. And sometimes it's just a little bit of support and a little bit of confidence that they need from an expert and from other partners from other countries just to get things going. And we think that the ladder that could help them move up on this board in this issue would be a media literacy. So really providing education, not just for children, but provide education at all levels for many stakeholders to understand the issue of unhealthy food marketing, especially digital food marketing, which is challenging for many. One big anaconda for many countries is lack of resources. Because if there is no money and there are no people, not much can be done. So a lot of countries had ambitions and they really wanted to do work, and they struggle because they already are full of work. They are not specifically working on food marketing only. They have loads of other things going on. So if that European monitoring protocol system is supposed to be implemented and successful EU-wide, there will need to be investment in the workforce in these countries for this kind of task, which can be very time-consuming. Some countries faced struggles with the ethics because a lot of the new tools to measure children's exposure to unhealthy food marketing in digital media require getting access to children's phones and some form of recording of their activity. They struggled with the GDPR, with the data protection. And because it is very important that we really understand what children can see and that we monitor what is getting into children's devices, this should be addressed, and we need some kind of EU-wide GDPR compliant guidance and agreement so the countries do not have to make this fight alone and each time from zero. Recruitment of children was challenging for some, so that's why we are providing the guidance on how to work and involve effectively and meaningfully young people and children in the research. There were some technical issues still with the tools to monitor some digital media marketing, but from what we've discussed with WHO, these are already being addressed, so hopefully this will be solved soon. And another big snake, a big anaconda, is lack of political support, which is very often in pair with the lobbying from the industry. So some of the countries were saying that the food marketing regulation is not the priority. It is not of interest for their institutes and they are trying to push through, but they struggle to get even their own colleagues on board. That's why, once again, we think that experience and knowledge sharing platform that will allow countries to meet between themselves and with experts to get the most recent evidence, to learn what are the usual arguments and how to counter them, how to discuss about unhealthy food marketing, regulation and monitoring. This would facilitate both monitoring and regulation for the countries. So this is in summary what we've done so far, and our monitoring protocol will be available publicly for anyone to use at the end of it. It will be part of the framework, and we are really excited about the continuation of this work and about the results of our piloting. Yeah, we'll keep you updated, hopefully. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Magdalena. Very engaging presentation, and I think it was very good to see that actually the Best-ReMaP has such an impact. You showed the projects in green that started activities during the Best-ReMaP project. It shows that in real life, our project has a significant impact. So thanks for sharing that as well, and all the details. Very interesting. Good. Okay, so now we move on. I'm a bit just watching the time. We are slightly running out of time, but we have a very important presentation from Margarita Bika, who is a doctoral student in population health at the Nuffield Department of Department of Population Health from the University of Oxford. And as we know, well, the Best-ReMaP partners know that Margarita, she worked for the Portuguese Directorate General of Health, and she was engaged in this work package 6. So, and the title of her presentation is Foods to Include or Exclude in Food Marketing Controls, Application of the Nutrient Profile Models. So Margarita, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Albert, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to the Work Package 6 for inviting me. It's really good to be back, even for a short presentation. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, thank you very much for inviting me here. This work with nutrient profile models started exactly here at Best-ReMaP in Work Package 6, and so I'll be speaking a bit about the importance of this model and also the work that was jointly done by Best-ReMaP and WHO Europe in the update of the WHO Europe nutrient profile model. So what is a nutrient profile model? WHO defines it as the science of classifying or ranking foods according to their nutritional composition for reasons related to preventing disease and promoting health. And basically, we can classify foods as healthy or unhealthy, or attribute them a ranking or a score for different nutrition policies. The general purposes, as I mentioned, can be to refer a food classification that refer to the nutrient levels in food. So we can say that this product is high in fat, or is a source of fiber, or other types of HFSS, for example, high in fat, sugar, and salt. But we can also, as I mentioned, attribute a score and say, and use this classification to refer directly to the effects of consuming the food on a person's health. So if this is healthy or less healthy, or compare the foods among food categories. So say this is the best option in the yogurts category, or even compare products in general. So we can use this nutrient profile models, and we should use these nutrient profile models as a basis to different nutrition policies. Today, the focus is restricting marketing of unhealthy foods to children. But there are other and very important nutrition policies that need also this models to underpin this policies. And in fact, as you mentioned, I'm currently doing a PhD in Oxford with Professor Mike Rayner, and we are exploring these other nutrition policies and these other purposes as front of package labeling and food taxation, but also I believe the future is also a combination of different nutrient profile models, or a joint nutrient profile model for healthy and sustainable diets, so that we can classify a food in terms of its healthiness, but also on its impact on the environment. So what we have done so far. 2 years ago, I was going to say, when I was preparing this, I was going to say last year, but no, it's already 2 years ago. We did this mapping report with Best-ReMaP, where we basically assessed the implementation of legislation and of voluntary approaches in the different countries of Best-ReMaP, of EU countries, but also countries participating in the marketing network of WHO Europe. And one of the questions were related to the implementation of nutrient profile models, where we could see that there's still a lot of work to be done. As the presentation of Magda and Anna and of Maria João, the big challenges of marketing and the big pressure that usually ministries have, it's also, you can also see it here, because the implementation of this type of measures is also very challenging. And we could see that a lot of countries didn't have any implementation. So even if they had a measure, they didn't have a nutrient profile model, meaning as already explained, it lacks of compliance because it's not clear what products are covered by this measure. And then there were others that adapted the WHO Europe Nutrifile model, the one developed in 2015, and others have adapted other Nutrifile models, some that are that came from co-regulation measures and not entirely defined by governments themselves. After that, we started the process of updating the WHO Europe Nutrient File model developed in 2015. This started with basically the objective of the Best-ReMaP and also following an expert meeting in 2021. Then we started planning the testing, and we tested this proposal for the update between March and June of last year. We in 13 countries, and it's never enough to thank these countries for their support in this testing. Belgium, Croatia, Estonia, Finland, France, Greece, Latvia, Portugal, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, and Spain. Because besides testing the product, and basically we ended with a big database of over 100,000 products. But besides this testing, these countries were also fundamental in the feedback that they provided in terms of the implementation of the model, the application, what was clear, what was not clear. And this process has been really enriching and insightful, and it was fundamental for this update. We then published this model last month on March, and here you can see the jazzy cover of the model, and also the different categories that this model contains, and how the different categories have thresholds defined for the different nutrients of concern. So total fat, saturated fat, total sugars, added sugars, non-sugar sweeteners, sodium, and energy. One of the big aspects of this update was to really have a general rationale. So the previous model was followed already developed models by Denmark and Norway, and one of the big challenges that countries faced when adapting this model was why these thresholds, what is the rationale of these thresholds. So one of the big aspects of this update was to really develop, and Professor Mike Rayner from the University of Oxford developed this general rationale based on the recommendations, and this rationale is the basis. So considering this rationale, then it was defined low, medium, or a high thresholds for each of the categories. I would just like to give a quick note. Unfortunately, we are in the process of developing a corrigendum, and it will be published in the upcoming weeks. The model itself and the thresholds are correct, but there are some discrepancies that fell through the cracks during the publishing process, meaning like some supplementary tables so we are in the process of publishing this corrigendum very soon. But this model and this table in particular, table 1 is correct, the thresholds are correct. So there are no questions in this regard, but there were some small discrepancies, especially in the format and in one sentence that could cause confusion. We had some context from some also industry partners, and so we are in the process of correcting it. And I'm very happy to share that with Best-ReMaP colleagues, and that they can maybe, if they don't mind, spread among the participants when this updated version is published. And to finish, how to use this WHO nutrient file model. So first of all, we have to ensure that the product is covered by the model, and there are some that are not, for example, baby foods and breast milk substitutes, supplements, food supplements. For baby foods, WHO Europe has another model that was also published on the 7th of March. So if the product doesn't fall in the scope of the model, then we cannot apply it. Then we have to identify the food category in which the product falls. The report has a supplementary table with a long description of the categories, what is involved. It's also matching with the WHO sodium benchmarks, global sodium benchmarks, and it also has the tariff codes and the Codex food category system. So we try to give as much detail as possible for you to be able to identify in which category the product falls. Then you have to cross-check the nutritional content of the food against the thresholds. If it's under the thresholds, then it can be marketed to children and adolescents. If not, then it shouldn't be, or it's not permitted to be marketed. The food product should be assessed as sold or as reconstituted if necessary, and that's usually in the package of the product according to the manufacturer's instruction. And one important thing and one big challenge when we monitor is, like, sometimes we have more than one product in an advertisement or even in a restaurant meal, and so each item should meet the relevant nutrition criteria. So if you have more than one product, you have to assess the nutritional profile for each of these products. One last note, and I think it's never enough to highlight this, is that this model was developed for, and especially in this context of this webinar, for marketing restrictions. So we don't want to interfere with the normal availability and offer of this product in the market. We just want to protect children as much as possible, and so that's why this model is probably considered more stricter than other types of nutrient profile models for other nutrition policies. But this update from the 2015 took into consideration the advances in sciences and also the learnings from the countries that adapted, and also from the models that were developed by the other WHO regions. So, but this update didn't want to increase the level of strictness. It has the same level of strictness and from the 2015, and that's why we tested this model. So we didn't want to be more strict than we were before, but we are strict because this is to protect children from harmful and unhealthy food marketing. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer to them. But if there are also concerns that arise in the future, I'm happy to be contacted by email, me or Professor Mike Rayner or Holly Ripon and the colleagues at WHO, and also the colleagues at Best-ReMaP. We are happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Margarita. Thanks for this presentation. So I think it was really clear, and we could really understand importance of this part of the activities of Work Package 6. And now I think time is to have a kind of a closing remarks by Janos Harrington from the UCC University of Cork, where she leads the food policy research team at the Center for Health and Diet Research. So Janos, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Albert. And I just want to start by thanking all of our speakers, Marie-João, Anna, Magda, and Margarita. I hope you'll all agree with me that it's been a very informative and interesting hour, and the contributions from all our participants, and I think it has highlighted the importance of I suppose collaborating and linking with across countries and across member states. And I think the volume of work that has been conducted, this is just but one work package in Best-ReMaP. So if you can think of the collective volume of work across the project, it really highlights the importance, I think, of collaboration. And I think this morning the work from Work Package 6 has been really nicely summarized from, Marie-João, highlighting the impacts of food marketing to children, and I suppose really setting the scene in terms of the volume of marketing to children and the impact and effects that has and the importance of the work in Best-ReMaP in looking to monitor and control the levels of marketing to children. And Anna, I think, really nicely highlighted the importance of it's just not enough to have policies in place, and that we really do need to have those policies implemented and to regulate the marketing to children. And nicely followed up by Magda in looking at how we monitor those policies and the tools that are there. And I think we can all relate to the snakes and ladders and the challenges, and I think the importance of highlighting the snakes that are there, but what ladders we need to put in place to help member states to avoid those slippery slopes. And then with Margarita and the nutrient profile model, yet another tool to help us. And I think across the member states, it's we need to look at, and I think the importance of having the likes of Best-ReMaP and going forward with other joint actions as well, as working together to support each other, building on the evidence that's there and using the most up-to-date evidence to either update the existing tools or to to highlight and to acknowledge the tools and frameworks that are there to help us in the challenges that we have to reduce the levels of childhood obesity, and in this case in using the tools that we have to restrict the marketing of foods and beverages that are adding to the levels of unhealthiness for our children, to create those healthier food environments. So I'd like to thank our contributors, and I know I speak on behalf of Mary Joao and Mimi, that the work that our postdoctoral researchers have put into the presentations that are for the last 2 years, but to be able to give you and outline the results today of all of their hard work. I think we have had the easy part of it, and that they've really outshined themselves. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Janos. Very important feedback and contribution. Thank you. So basically, this is the end of the presentations, and now we have a bit of time for Q&A. And I invite everyone to share your questions in the chat, or even you can come on stage and share your questions. Maybe the first one on my side is that when I'm listening to Work Package 6 presentations here and other forum conferences, there's this kind of a heartbreaking message that it's the poorest social strata, kids in the poorest social strata, that are kind of most likely to become obese, less preferences, less other preferences or options to choose another path for nutrition. So do you have any ideas how to break this circle, this situation, vicious circle? If you are poor, you get the wrong food, you even get worse food, and then you get more unhealthy, which means you are limited to have a stronger position on the labor markets. I mean, I think it's this is something, as I mentioned, heartbreaking to me. So can you give a brief reflection on this?
Can I might start on that, and I think just I suppose by way of background, I think for many years we have been pointing the finger at individuals, and that this is an individual problem, and that individuals just need to change their behavior, be it adults or children. And in relation to children, much of the blame, I think, has been pointed at parents as well. But I think we need to move away from that thinking, yes, there is a certain level of individual behavior change that we need, but to facilitate that, and go back to the snakes and ladders that Magda has spoke about, to facilitate that individual behavior change, I think we need a societal shift, and I think we need strong political will and political support to create the environments which, you know, provide those ladders, you know, to create that healthier food environments. And to do that, we need action at policy level. We need that upstream action, which in many cases I think is you know, it's politically more challenging, but we have, you know, we see greater population level effects, whereas at the individual level, it's politically easier to lay the blame, or, you know, put into interventions at individual behavior change, but the effects that we see there are far less. So I think we need that shift and that political support. You know, maybe it doesn't answer your entire question, but I think we do need to see those the shift to more upstream action and political will. I think Mimi has her hand up.
Yeah, Mimi has her hand up. Yes, Mimi, please. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, thanks to all the presenters, and hi everybody. Yeah, Albert, this is one of the big questions that remains open, and it's quite interesting when people talk about questions like food poverty and so on. It's actually a question of poverty itself. So where we have more unequal societies, we have people who have less disposable income available to buy quality foods, and we have a broken food system in which ultra processed foods, which are driving this obesity issue globally now, are the cheapest foods in most markets. And until we actually address that and consider what's wrong with a system of food production that makes less healthy food, that creates ill health, most available to the people with the fewest resources, until we address that, we will still be wrangling with this. And then on top of it, we promote it more and more to the entire population. And then, as Jana says, expect people to resist. So it's an impossible equation for individuals to solve, and it's one that requires systemic solutions. And they need to be cross-silo. They can't just be in departments of health. I'm sure there are largely Ministry of Health representatives here, and you will all be familiar with the frustration of knowing how you need to work across government departments in order to realize these solutions.
Maybe you have been involved really a lot in this work package 6. I've heard you giving speeches, lectures. It was really fascinating. If you could talk to one person in the UK concerning the Best-ReMaP work package 6 activities, who this person would be, and what would be your elevator pitch, like 3 sentences? I know we haven't discussed this before, but you seem to be kind of okay on the stage.
Yeah, well, you put me on the spot. I would say that our work in Best-ReMaP is to create a level playing field across the European countries by understanding the extent and nature of children's exposure to unhealthy food marketing and how that influences their behaviors. We have so much evidence for that. And then what we can do on policy level in order to educate all the stakeholders, because increasingly we understand these are multi-systemic problems, not just about food quality, but also about marketing, which touches on communications policy, internet policy, as well as health and media policy. So it's different in every country. But then, Albert, I would switch very quickly. And if I was talking to somebody in the UK and say, how are we going to implement the regulation that keeps being pushed back in the UK, where there is the opportunity with a developed regulation restricting online marketing, not perfect, not completely, but it is sitting there waiting to be activated on the statute books, and political will has failed us there. So, you know, we have an example that could be actioned, and we're waiting for more positive political wins to take it through the last stage.
Okay, thank you. This is very, very important. Maybe then I would ask Margarita, if you talk to your professor and you need to summarize what has been your main message for this discussion, what this summary would be, what this point would be for today. So what was your most important message to this audience?
I think it's really the importance of this problem, of this challenge, and the amount of work and the interdisciplinary and comprehensive work that Best-ReMaP has been done. So not only looking at one step, but and I think that's one of the strengths of this work package, is really to look from the policy development until the tools that you have to implement this policy, but also then how you monitor this policy and the exposure in general. So I think that would be my summary.
Perfect. That's very nice. Okay. Then for maybe Magdalena, I would ask Magdalena, if somebody would ask you what you are most proud of in your work in Work Package 6, what would that be, you know, in the Best-ReMaP project?
Sorry. Yeah. So what I think I'm the most proud of is the collaboration with our partners, because we wouldn't have done anything. So as I said, we analyzed the tools, we prepared the tools, but the tools will not implement themselves. And the only way to know how we can make a successful implementation is to learn what are the individual circumstances of each country, because all of them will have different challenges. So they will all need individual support. They will all need tailored solutions. So although we can create some tools that will be standardized and can be used across, they will all need different kind of support. Therefore, I think the most important and the one that I'm most proud of is the response from our partners in communication, in reviewing our work, and in the piloting and in providing their feedback. So I think this is the power of this work that we've done here. And also, if I can add, just in terms of the poverty, just one quick summary. Because if the problem that we have affects disproportionately some group, the solution will disproportionately protect them. So if we will put successful protection in place, these groups will benefit the most. So I think this is the what we can do now in terms of protecting those that are already deprived. Having a strong and effective regulation, monitoring, and protecting all of the children will benefit those that are affected the most by the problem. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Magdalena. And I also ask Anna, right, to maybe contribute to this discussion. So what would be your main takeaway from this project, right? The project will end, and then what Work Package 6 output would be, you know, as what your interpretation about this output would be. What is the greatest result of this activity of Work Package 6?
Yes, well, I think that this problem involves a lot of stakeholders, from ministries of health, but also ministries of communications and trade. It also involves advertisers and the food industry, and researchers, and the public, the young people who are affected by this problem. So it is important to, as I said before, collaborate and link with each other and share the concern and the objective. I think that's the main takeaway for me. And yes, I'm just thinking about your question of health inequalities. And in Mexico, where I'm from, there has been research conducted on food environments that use the concept of food swamps to refer to those spaces that are where there's a lot promotion of unhealthy foods, and these are lower socioeconomic areas compared to the higher socioeconomic areas. So I think that's a good idea to think about how people who are marginalized, live in these food swamps, are more exposed to unhealthy food marketing. Thanks.
Very, very important message from Mexico, right? Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I think there is one question from Bo Domen from Food Drink Europe, and he's asking, when is the updated correct WHO model planned to be published exactly?
Sorry, I was really just writing the chat, but I can say out loud.
Yeah.
We don't have an exact date as it's going through the standard checking procedures now. It's already been updated, but the publication of WHO is not a straightforward process, but very soon, I believe in the upcoming weeks. But as I mentioned, the model and the thresholds are correct and are in the published version that Daniela, thank you very much for publishing in the chat as well. So if you want to consult the model and the thresholds, you can consult in the published version. But the corrigendum will be published very soon. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to share with Best-ReMaP colleagues, and they can spread among the participants once this corrigendum is published, but the model is already published and correct. Thank you.
Perfect, excellent. Okay, so thank you very much. I think it's kind of time to close this event. We have still a couple of things to do. One is I would like to mention to you that we'll be publishing the presentations here. Here I'm just sharing in the chat on this webinar page later on, so the videos and possibly the PowerPoints as well. And then, well, we hope we really learned a lot from this webinar. Me, definitely, yes, it was very interesting, and also the presentation and then the comments. And I would like to ask you to fill in this questionnaire, this form that I'm also sharing now in the chat. Because this would be giving us a feedback, us, presenters, organizers, of how you like this webinar. And yes, and thanks for staying us in total. Actually, I asked Agnes, my colleague, to share this this link of the survey. And well, this project, the Best-ReMaP project, will come to an end in September. But until then, we'll have a lot more products, deliverables coming up, and they will all shared off the Work Package 6 website. If you go to bestremap.eu, and then you can find there this Work Package 6 webpage, food marketing. Then you can see the results that we have. And then if you follow us on this website, you will see the future reports, deliverables as well. So I think with this, yes, our time is up. And I think I'm really very much thankful for you for participating, and this great number of participants. This was really excellent. I also thank the presenters, the great presentations, great PowerPoints. It's easy to follow. And I think really this is a super important job that Work Package 6 is doing, and this is really one of the highlights of the Best-ReMaP joint action. There will be a closing conference in Paris in September, and I think then we'll really see the final results of this work package. So with this, does anybody have any still questions or anything to raise? If not, then thanks again for everyone, presenters, participants, and I would like to ask you to click on the link which is provided in the chat and fill this survey, because this is very important for us to see how you like this webinar and what is your takeaway from this event. So thank you very much. I leave this screen a bit more open so you can all click on the link, and yes, have a nice rest of the day, and yeah, greetings to you all. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
I think there's no link, Albert, sorry.
No, there is no link.
For me, it does open up.
Yeah.
Link webreposservice.com. You didn't see, oh, sorry.
Where
Oh,
is
yes,
it?
yes, wait a sec. Yes, yes, because Agnes sent it only to me and not to everyone. Yes, here is it. Yeah, this is the link. Yes.
Okay, now it's okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Sorry about this.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a
Thanks a
lot.
lot. Please.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.